Glory to Jesus Christ. I kind of had a Simeon experience just a few days ago. I was on a clergy retreat up in Carefree, and they have a labyrinth there. So, just to clarify, a labyrinth is something that was sometimes made on the floor of European cathedrals. And this was made in the time when extreme pilgrimages were assigned as penances in the Middle Ages of the Church. And labyrinths were created as pilgrimages, as penances, for people to do who couldn't actually, either for health or financial reasons or whatever, couldn't actually leave to go on a pilgrimage to Jerusalem or Canterbury or Santiago de Compostela or somewhere far away like that. And so they created these elaborate labyrinths, the designs on the floor of a cathedral that you move around, and with many sort of twists and turns in this circular path. And the aim is to get to the center. And you may think you're about to get to the center, and then all of a sudden you go a very long way away from the center. And then gradually move back in, and then move out, and then move back in. And labyrinths have been popularized really in sort of New Age spirituality. And certainly I have encountered them as part of the, I suppose, culture that we experience as hospital chaplains, which, if you're not careful, can be fairly New Age, fairly wishy-washy. But nevertheless, these labyrinths are becoming more and more popular, and the retreat centre that we were at had one of these labyrinths. And so, recognizing that this is a tradition which originated in the Catholic Church, at least in the version that it's usually recreated in, I decided I was going to walk this labyrinth as a tool to prayer, as a tool for sort of lifting up my intercessions before God, and just using the length of time it takes to walk around and around this thing, you know, as a vehicle for prayer, as a container for prayer. And I'm walking around and around praying my prayers and sort of wondering, is God going to speak clearly to me about something I've been praying about? Is God going to bless me today, or is God going to, as it feels sometimes, remain aloof and not say very much to me, even when perhaps I would like to hear from God more clearly than I have been doing recently? So I'm walking around and around, and I pray my prayers and go through all my intentions and get to the center of the labyrinth, and then take the shortcut out. And as I'm just about to exit, I realize that somebody is looking at me. And I turn around, and right behind me is a beautiful baby girl in the arms of her mother. Her mother was a clergy from the United Church of Christ who was there on a young clergy retreat. And this beautiful baby is beaming right at me, smiling right in my face. And I waved at her, and she thought this was hilarious and started to laugh at me. And it was beautiful. And it was a beautiful flesh and blood, concrete experience for me of the blessing of God. And I was well aware that I'd chosen to go and do those prayers at a very specific time, the time when, for once in my life, I'd been obedient and felt God kicking me to get out of bed early and go do those prayers. So I did. And I knew this wasn't a chance encounter. And I felt very blessed with the joy and the smile that this little baby girl had, especially since she thought I was so hilarious. And it was a reminder to me that God's blessings sometimes can be very concrete, can meet us at exactly the right time, totally coordinated. And just as the blessing and the encounter that we hear about in the gospel was coordinated, Anna came in just at the right time. Simeon came in just at the right time. And sometimes even when we are obedient to God's promptings, we will be in the right place at the right time. So I got to see this beautiful light of God on the face of this baby, and I'm sure baby Olive spent the rest of her day blessing people with her smile and with her joy. And I felt that was a very direct answer to my prayers, as a reminder that God's blessings are not always mystical. Sometimes they're very concrete, sometimes they're very flesh and blood. And maybe it's a different way to think of the light of the revelation to the Gentiles as the smile and the joy on the face of an innocent baby. But nevertheless, God promises us in this feast light and enlightenment, not just for the church people, but for all the other people, not just for the Jews, but for the Gentiles, not just for the people who are faithful, but maybe even we can believe a light that will enlighten, please God, even the unfaithful. So I had a look at the passages in Scripture that talk about the light to the Gentiles. And it's prophesied in Isaiah, who says, I, the Lord, have called you in righteousness and will hold your hand. I will keep you and give you as a covenant to the people, as a light to the Gentiles. Later on in Isaiah, a few chapters later, he says, it is too small a thing that you should be my servant, to raise up the tribes of Jacob and to restore the preserved ones of Israel. I will also give you as a light to the Gentiles, that you should be my salvation to the ends of the earth. In prophecy, the Lord is speaking to Jesus, of course. And again, we have a similar reference. The Lord has made bare his holy arm in the eyes of all the nations, and all the ends of the earth shall see the salvation of our God. There are other references too, but those are enough to make the point. And we see that this light, this salvation, is going to be to all the ends of the earth. It's not just for Israel. It's not just for the people of God. It's for all the Gentiles and all the ends of the earth. And I was struck on the retreat reading a book by the Orthodox writer Alexander Schmemann, who's perhaps one of the best recent writers within the Orthodox Church, perhaps one of the deepest thinking. And his comment on this feast day is this: whose presentation is the church really speaking of? Yes, it's speaking about Christ's presentation in the temple. But what the church is really inviting us to think about and pray about is our presentation in the temple. Today, we offer ourselves in the temple. We are purified in the temple. And we also are called to be lights for revelation to the ends of the earth. So may all of us shine perhaps in the same way that that little baby girl who smiled at me with joy and with happiness. May all of us, in whatever way God calls us to shine, let our light shine to the ends of the earth. Glory to Jesus Christ.